Welcome to Star-Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaiian-born Filipino-Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. Welcome, luminaries, to the initiatory episode of Star Powered. I'm recording this on October 14th, 2022, and recording this from the Ramaytush Ohlone land, currently called San Francisco, California. I'm a grateful settler here, and I named the original caretakers of this land to give thanks for the opportunities the spirit of this location has given me to do my change-making work and allow my family to thrive. Today is the first day of this podcast, Star Powered, but it's not a completely different podcast. This podcast used to be called the Savvy Luminary, and there is a shift that needed to happen. As I record this, in the sky, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are all in Libra, asking us to come together, connect through shared values and ideas. The Gemini moon approaching Mars, also in Gemini, feels successful when she activates and advocates through dialogue and inspired messages. And then Saturn in Aquarius creates a grand trine with the sun and the moon, asking us to master and commit to innovating and making change. The world is ripe for this change in social structures. It's a beautiful energy to record this initiatory episode of Star Powered. Thank you so much for joining me. So, in this first episode of Star Powered, I wanted to share about this shift, about the evolution and the whys that drive this evolution. I'd like to reintroduce myself in a way that feels so much more me. I want to define what a change maker is and how I see you being a change maker. And I want to share with you why it's time for you to step into your star powers now. I'll also be sharing what's next on the horizon. So thank you for joining in and sharing this rebirth with me. So why the shift? Why did I change the name to Star Powered from the Savvy Luminary? Well, way back in March of 2022, I took a step back from this podcast where up until then, I was delivering 2 weekly episodes of the Savvy Luminary. I was doing a teaching episode, I was doing an astrology episode, a mundane astrology episode, and it was really beginning to feel heavy and restrictive. I took some intentional time away from the podcast and work to deal with myself, self-care, family things, but mostly to create empty space. At this point in my life, I knew and trusted in the void because in the void, in that empty space, is where magic and creation happens. And then in April and May and the springtime, we have that eclipse season, that Taurus new moon eclipse and the Scorpio full moon eclipse. Whew, that's when things really began to shift. Things really opened up and expanded, and it felt like a cracking open as we now approach this next eclipse season. This cracking continues. Now, this cracking open isn't like comfortable exactly, not at all. In fact, there are many pains, frustrations, confrontations with core wounds that I'm currently going through in my personal life. And intertwined with this is a pouring forth of creation, ideas, content, the words and the messages and the work pour out from me. Dr. Julia Colangelo, a flow expert, well, she would call this flow. And she's guided me to feel all the feels and taught me that these moments come at those pressure points where you can't unweave the pain and the pleasure. They come together. So I was really able to step into this and be with this idea of flow to distill this evolution and this shift. And what I discovered about my need to shift from the Savvy Luminary to Star Powered were from these 3 needs: expansion, inclusivity, and simplicity. I needed expansion because the Savvy Luminary was really targeted and directed and aimed towards entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship was feeling, even though it's so vast, it was actually feeling really tight. I knew that there was more that I was supposed to serve and direct. And even though there are 7 syllables, a whole mouthful to say the Savvy Luminary, that also felt super, super restrictive. I felt like I was in a pot and I had to grow out of it. Like I was just like bursting at the seams to just talk about entrepreneurship, to just talk about business, to just talk about astrology. There's so much more that I want to talk about. The second need that I had was inclusivity. I wanted to serve more than entrepreneurs. I love my entrepreneurial clients, and you are still my part of my audience, part of my listeners that I hope to call in. But what I've noticed is that many of my listeners, my community members, and my clients do not identify as entrepreneurs, even if they're business owners. And there are many more out there that are craving guidance and astrological insight that are C-suite executives or nonprofit leaders and more. So what everyone has in common is that they're all change makers. And I'm going to share with you how I define change makers. More on that in just a bit. Now, my third need was simplicity. Again, the Savvy Luminary, it served its purpose. I loved it so much. But again, a mouthful, really hard to remember. I wanted to be more memorable because the more memorable I was, and this content was, and this podcast was, the more impactful it would be. My business coach and dear friend, Megan Hale, over the last year has been helping me at my snail's pace, steady and slow wins the race, to simplify my offers and my work, to create a clear pathway for people to come with me on, to bring out my most amazing gifts in a way that it was easy for others to recognize. And most of this work was about simplification. In fact, my book that I wrote at the end of 2020, Star Powered Brand, that name Star Powered was one of many gifts that Megan has bestowed on me. So to simplify, the Savvy Luminary is to kill off Savvy Luminary to rebirth Star Powered. There is spaciousness and depth all in a simple container of Star Powered. So I've been getting a lot of questions like on Facebook about this process and how we went about shifting and evolving the Savvy Luminary into Star Powered. Now, this process didn't happen overnight, although from the outside, it looks like a big reveal. Although I've been making whispers of this since the summer, this has really been happening for over a year. And once I finally decided that it was time to go, I knew that I needed to find one, the right time, two, the right beautiful vibe, and three, the right message to take form. So, finding the right time, of course, I'm an astrologer, and there are people called electional astrologers who specialize in finding an electional time, a time that we can elect to initiate or breathe life or give birth to an idea. I am not a pro in the electional astrology. I depend on other experts, but I can kind of have a little, I have a nose to the wind. I can kind of smell some good times because what I'm looking for primarily is my own personal astrology, because your own personal astrology will always override the astrology of what's going on in the collective. So, of course, I harnessed my astro tools to find a good electional time from some other electional experts and looked at my own personal astrology for the perfect time of creation and growth. As the sun currently transit my fifth house of passion and pleasure and fun and creativity, I knew that this was the right time for me to put Star Powered forth into the world. The next thing about this process was that I wanted to create a beautiful new vibe. A lot of times when we're thinking about our brand and our brand identity, we're primarily looking at the look. the logo, the visual identity, but there's way more to creating a vibe of a brand. And especially on a podcast, it's yeah about the look, but that's just like one little thing as you're scrolling through all of the different podcasts on your podcast feed. I also wanted to really ground into the feel and the sound. So, one of the things that I rarely talk about, but it's really a huge part of my business, is the do for you design and branding that we do here. Jeff Campanero, my right hand man for over 12 years, and I have been designing top notch brand identities, again, way more than just logos and web design, like for over 12 years. Okay. So, we still do this for clients who are in the know. We rarely talk about it and ready to invest in this valuable work. So we took the skill set that we use for our clients, like a no guess, no copy, no compare approach to visual design, using my natal astrology to design the new look while also giving some legacy to the Savvy Luminary. Notice how we kept the dark blue of the background, but we brightened it up to make it more cheerful. We chose a font that was the same as my book for some brand legacy and consistency. We tested with my Facebook group that is currently called Savvy Luminary, but that is now changing to Star Powered. So, if you're into free Facebook groups and like community, head on over to Star Powered. That'll be changing by the time you hear this. And the community members there had given me some great insight as to what caught their eye. And one of the things that was really clear was that most people preferred this beautiful ring. It was kind of like a bubble, but really what I wanted it to represent was kind of the elliptical as we trace the stars across the sky. And I decided to add a rainbow glow around that because the rainbow represented the inclusivity. Like, I just love the values of the LGBTQI plus community. And I wanted to bring the inclusivity of the rainbow, but also because I'm from Hawaii and rainbows like just signify the aloha spirit. And I freaking love rainbows. They satisfy both my Gemini rising and my Pisces midheaven to add sparkles and to add variation. So, you know what? We kept that rainbow. And I'm completely blown away how Jeff takes my vision and my creative direction and turns it into something so completely me. Our creative process really is a dream, and I can't wait to share that process with others. Then for the other vibe, I wanted a new sound. In the Savvy Luminary, we used some royalty-free music, and it was fine for what it was, but it was just like, eh. I knew I needed something that was one of a kind and original, just as unique as I am and as this podcast is. So I asked the one and only DJ Shammy D from Los Angeles to craft an original musical vibe to set the tone for this expansive, inclusive, safe space. When we were working together, I asked him to create a soundscape that when people heard that first sound drop, listeners would instantly be transported to the safe, happy sanctuary where inspired action and spiritual journeys intersect. Didn't he do an amazing job with that new intro? And then lastly, in the creative process was I needed a new message, but I needed to let the message take its form. Now, this is one of the most important parts of my brand as a Gemini rising and a Pisces midheaven. I needed space to channel the messages that desired to come through with my Pisces midheaven and the language that would call in those I meant to connect with and serve from that Gemini rising. This language has evolved over the years and it will continue to evolve. And through my daily practice, right, it's not like just it came and it was like boom, it was right there. It took dedication and a daily practice of writing and committing to iterative improvements. The language and my access to be able to channel the right words at the right time is getting more on point every day. These are the perfect words that pour from me right now. Ah. So I just wanted to like shed some light on that creative process of this change, this shift, this evolution, this expansive growth. Now, before I go on, I think I should probably reintroduce myself. So I started this original podcast back in February of 2020. I launched it on my birthday on Valentine's Day of 2020. And since then, I have grown a lot. And so there have been listeners here since that very beginning. Thank you so much for staying with me this entire time. You might be completely new and not really know who I am. So let me introduce myself in a much more thorough and authentic way, because when I started this back in 2020, there was a lot of parts of me that I was hiding. So, to reintroduce myself, I am Leslie Tagorda, a Hawaii born Filipino Jewish third career astrologer. My first and ongoing career as a professional classical clarinetist, like hello, institutionalized elitism, and then my branding and design business, and now the evolution of astrology, focused on the intersection of identity, leadership, and how we present ourselves in the world. This journey is rooted from exploring my own identity crisis and worthiness, as all I'd ever heard growing up was that I wasn't enough. I wasn't Hawaiian enough because I'm not Hawaiian blooded. I wasn't white enough because I'm half Asian, and I'm not Filipino enough because I'm half white. I'm not thin enough, smart enough, good enough. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. And what I've done up to now is I've woven in all of my experiences and discovered how the language of astrology and musical harmony applies in how we present ourselves in the world, and what we need to reframe to dismantle and unlearn societal rules of how we see our individual inner success, work, and leadership. So today, my mission is to be a spiritual and strategic teacher, helping changemakers turn their wounds into wisdom to become the luminary leaders they are born to be. And my purpose is to innovate astrology and intuition as a movement in leveraging brand and leadership development, combining a unique skill set of branding, business astrology, and what I call the Astrobrand method. Success to me is inspiring you to validate your purpose, take courageous action, and lead by your chart. I want to guide you along your spiritual journey so that as you heal your sense of self, so does your social impact through your change making work. Ah, it feels so good to come out of the closet to share all of those parts as I reintroduce myself, because I was mentioning that it wasn't really that long ago where I refused to mention that I was Filipino or Jewish. And honestly, that was by design. In 2020, when the world as we knew it stopped, my dearest friend, Asha Frost, medicine woman, asked me to look into my own heritage and background, from which I was terribly disconnected, AKA colonized. What I learned was that this disconnection was because I suffered from colonial mentality. Colonial mentality is where there's a dismissal and a shame of one's own heritage to which you were born in favor of the culture of the oppressor. Like, wow, right? Like in Hawaii, I never learned how to speak Ilocano. My family is Ilocano. Instead, I learned how to speak Japanese. I was a classical musician. Well, the classical musician, that's from my Jewish side, because my grandma actually, my mom played the clarinet. She made me play the clarinet. My grandma bought me my first clarinet so I could play sunrise, sunset. But I was still never told people for years and years, decades, that I was Jewish because I was afraid. And of course, I'm afraid. That was a survival instinct for the many years of genocide, right? So being a Filipino settler in Hawaii has so much to unpack. The Philippines has been colonized for over 500 years. And then the British and the American imperialists imported cheap Filipino labor to Hawaii to work on plantations during the American Revolution, because they couldn't get Native Hawaiians to grow sugar because of genocide and the strategy to separate Native people from their land. On my mother's Jewish side, well, you know about the terrible genocide and constant persecution of Jewish people. That fear I still carry in my bones. And so it feels so good to be authentically myself. And as I heal my own identity, I can see how this is sparking others to heal their own sense of self. So now that I've introduced myself, I want to explain and define what is a change maker. And so, when I think about a change maker, I'm thinking of, yes, entrepreneurs. I'm thinking of thought leaders. I'm thinking of nonprofit executives. I'm thinking of C-suite people. I'm thinking about all of those that just cannot work in conventional, normal, quote unquote, jobs or industries. Or if you're working in the traditional workforce, you're doing your part to make change, to make the world a more equitable and just place. Because you see how this world is not set up, that you see the systems that hold us back and keep us in boxes. You believe in equity, inclusion, kindness, collaboration, sharing, and freedom of choice. You believe in human rights and protecting the earth. And you are working on your own inner heroine's journey, healing the inner parts and healing through your work with compassion and impactful leadership without harm. You know that your work is part of your spiritual journey. I believe that change making is indeed a spiritual journey where your work is part of your soul's purpose. And in order to accomplish your purpose, you are here to learn self responsibility, self worth, self love, self trust. All of these things make you a change maker. So if you identify as a change maker, if you're looking to become a change maker, you have that in you, you have friends that are a change maker, please do the deep inner healing work. As you do that, oh my goodness, your work will just make tons of impact and add value into this world. So, as I end this podcast, I want to rekindle and spark what's next. Remember, there's lots of different ways that you can work with me, that you can harness astrology in your change making work. The first thing I'd like to offer, of course, is my StarCast. My business StarCast is free, and you can find that on starpowered.com/StarCast. Now, my StarCasts are not your typical horoscopes. They are monthly biz StarCasts so that you can get inspired with how to work with the cosmic collective energies available to all of us. I provide new and full moon prescriptions as well as email only offers. Remember, these are prescriptive, not predictive. I offer inspiration and insight, like big shifts in belief and mindset that come from subtle attunements in cosmic cycles. And I offer a leadership and identity lens into astrology so that you can get astrological interpretations like you've never heard before, with a twist of branding, advocacy, leadership, and decolonization. If you're a change maker, healer, or making other kinds of changes in this world and might be stuck in the shadows of Capricorn, you are a leader. Together, we are creating the future we want to see. So, of course, get your free StarCast. Of course, I offer many ways to learn astrology with me. I have individual courses, and in January of 2023, I'll be offering my Star Powered Circle. It will include everything that I currently offer, from new moon meetups to astrology masterclasses to my core astrology courses like Written in the Stars, an introduction to my philosophy and how you can see the symbols in your chart for change making work, Star Powered Position, an intensive that dives into the positioning work that differentiates you from others in your field and calls in your soul aligned customers. And then upcoming in the year, we're going to have Star Powered Voice and Star Powered Style, two different intensives, one that works on your brand messaging and the other one that works on your visual brand and systems vibes according to your styles. Oh my goodness. And then, of course, there's the Astrobrand certification that is also coming up. So those are all the ways that you can learn astrology with me. Of course, if you're not the person like, I don't really want to learn astrology, Leslie, just give me your goods. You can get one-on-one guidance with me with one-on-one Astro Brand sessions and do for you branding, where we really only take a few clients a year. So if you're interested in getting any brand or web design work in 2023, now is the time to reserve your space. So thank you so much for listening along with me in this first episode of Star Powered. It feels so good to reveal this vibe that fits me so much better. I'd like to offer some special thanks. I'd like to offer thanks for all of your support and guidance from Asha Frost, Indigenous Medicine Woman, Megan Hale, Profit First, business and money coach, Lee McDonough, who has just been such a wonderful, supportive mystic and coach, Dr. Julia Colangelo, who's taught me how to flow in my own process, Jeff Compagnero, who is my right-hand man and has been by my side for 12 years. And then, of course, DJ Shami Arash Hale D, who has created the new soundscape for this beautiful podcast. I'd like to shout out to my listeners and the Savvy Luminary community and my clients that allow me to guide them. Please let me know what you think of this new shift. Send me an email, DM me on Instagram, or simply just share this work in the world. Thank you. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.